Hi everyone. Today we will learn about Power Platform fundamentals. So this is a very exciting topic. So Power Platform, as you know, is a product of Microsoft, and it provides organizations with the opportunity to empower their team members to build their own solutions through an intuitive low code or no code set of services. These services help simplify the process of building solutions. So here solutions can be built in days or weeks, right, as opposed to months or years which used to take earlier, right? So Microsoft Power Platform is composed of four key products: Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Power Pages. Okay. So yeah, as you can see here, we have Power BI, Power Apps, Automate, Pages, AI Builder, Data Words, FX, and so on. So it's understand what is Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 is another product of Microsoft, right? So with the subscription to Microsoft 365, you will get Microsoft Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneDrive, and so much more. I think most of you would be using Teams, Word, Excel in your day-to-day work, right? We also get 1 TB of OneDrive cloud storage, and in the Microsoft 365 seeded plan also we have Power Automate tool. Okay, so Power Automate, as you know, is a fundamental part of the Microsoft 365 suite. Okay? It's enabled as a service as part of all Microsoft 365 SKUs. Okay, so what is Microsoft 365 tenant? As you know, tenant is a dedicated instance, okay, of the cloud server, you can say that way. Okay, so 365 tenant is a dedicated instance of the services of Microsoft 365, and your organization data is stored within a specific default location. It is stored in a specific default location such as Europe, North America. Okay, so during the creation of the tenant, you have to specify the location where you want to store the data. Okay, so this is very important. So each 365 tenant is distinct, unique, and separate from other Microsoft 365 tenants to ensure security. Okay. So how do you create a tenant? You create a tenant when you purchase a product from Microsoft, like Microsoft 365 E3 or E5. Okay. So you can verify by going to www.office.com, log in with your Microsoft ID, and you can see on the top right, you can see your tenant. Okay. Even you can go to as portal.azure.com and you can check your tenant. Okay. So the Microsoft 365 tenant also includes an Entra tenant, which is a dedicated instance of ID, Entra ID for user accounts, groups, and user objects. Similarly, here also Entra tenant is distinct, unique, and separate from other Microsoft tenant. Okay. So what is Microsoft Entra ID? So this is another important thing. So it is a cloud-based identity and access management service which you can use to access other resources within Microsoft 365, Azure, and so on. And Power Automate authentication is performed by Entra ID. Okay. So who uses Microsoft Entra ID? Everyone uses in your organization. Okay. So IT admins, app developers, Office 365, Microsoft 365 users, Dynamics CRM users, everyone, Power Automate, Power Apps, OneDrive, Outlook users. So it's part and parcel of the products which we are using in our day-to-day life. Okay. So this is the overview of the Entra ID. So Entra ID, as I mentioned, it is used by all in on premises, as well as cloud resources. Okay. Now coming to Power Platform and Azure. Power Platform runs on Azure as a multi-tenant service. As you can see on the diagram. So here it is now mentioned as AD tenant, but it is renamed to Entra. So this diagram is not updated, but you can think of it as like Entra. Okay. And it's connected to Power Platform environment, Dataverse, and so on. So all Power Platform products use Microsoft Entra ID, which was formerly called Azure AD. Okay. So unless you have Microsoft Entra ID configured, you cannot access Power Platform products, even Microsoft 365 products. Okay. So Entra ID is a must. Okay. So Power Platform environment. Coming to Power Platform environment, Power Platform environment is created in Power Platform once Microsoft 365 Entra tenant is created, right? By default, Power Platform environment is created. Also, it uses Azure Storage and Azure SQL database for data storage. Okay. In addition, identity management, role-based security, and fine-grained permission controls enable Dataverse customers to combine business units, role-based security, row-based security, and column-based security. Okay. Power Automate can be used in Microsoft 365 tenants to create workflows. So how can people gain access to the paid features of Power Automate? There are multiple ways. They can directly sign up for a Power Automate trial license for 90 days at no cost. You can assign, an admin can assign a Power Automate license to a user in the admin center. So once you, or if you buy a Microsoft 365 or Dynamics 365 plan, you get access to Power Automate automatically. So that is a seeded plan, but there are some limitation, like you won't get some premium features and so on. So premium features, for premium features you need to pay some extra money, right, to Microsoft. So nothing is free in this world. So yeah. Coming to Power Platform environments, each Power Platform environment is created under a Microsoft Entra tenant, as you have seen earlier, and for security purpose, its resources can only be accessed by users within the tenant. Environment is also bound to a specific location, geographic location, like the United States or Europe and so on. Okay, and Microsoft uses some great logic, great algorithm to route your request to the data center in that location. Okay, and also environment can have a 0 or 1 Dataverse database for storage for apps and chatbots. So you can create multiple environments as per your storage capacity, like dev, test, and prod. But by default, but when you buy a Microsoft 365 plan, or you create a tenant, you get a default database, default environment. Okay, and default environment will have a database by default, by itself. Okay. Now coming to authenticating to Power Platform cloud services. So Power Platform authentication involves a sequence of request responses and redirects between the user's browser and Power Platform Azure services. So this is the these are the steps which is followed in the authentication sequence. Okay. So user initiates a connection to the service from a browser, and then the various Azure services checks the browser DNS to check the nearest data center or the appropriate data center where the Power Platform service is deployed, and it performs all these steps to get back the authentication to authorize the to authenticate the user actually. Okay. Okay, now moving on to some fundamentals of Power Automate. So Power Automate is a comprehensive cloud automation platform, and its important feature is it is low code. So citizen developers can also start building workflows in a Power Automate. It's very quick, learning curve is very less. So to use Power Automate, all you need is a web browser. Edge, Chrome, or any browser, any email address. Okay. It can be used on a large variety of devices and browsers, like you can use it in your Windows 11. Yeah. Even there is a web app also, mobile app for that. Then we have more than 1000 pre-built connectors already available for integration purpose to other third-party apps like SAP, Salesforce, Dynamic 365, Adobe, Excel, SharePoint, and so on. And it's evolving as well. So Microsoft is adding new connectors on a regular basis. So how to subscribe for Power Automate? As we have seen, you can start a trial. You can, and when you buy a Windows 11 license, there also you get some standard feature of Power Automate. So you can go to your Windows, search for Power Automate, and you will be having that. Okay, but for getting the premium feature, you have to buy some additional plan. Okay. So this is the authentication mechanism where there are multiple authentic. So these mechanism may change based on the new features. So like on-premises data gateway is for connected to SQL Server database, right? Or your on-premise SQL Server database MySQL. You can use a on-premise data gateway. Then as your AD authentication. Now it is called Entra ID authentication, right? So some of the platform security features, it's based on least privilege access. It uses industry standard encryption methodology to protect the data in transit and in rest. Okay. Security in Dataverse. Users are authenticated by Microsoft Entra ID. Licensing is the first control gate to allow access to components. Then there are security groups, security roles to restrict access, to provide access as well. And environments access default security boundaries, allowing different security needs to be implemented in each environment. Yeah. So to manage security settings, you must be a system administrator in Dataverse. So how do you control access to environments? We use security groups and licenses, as well as security roles. Okay. So service principal versus service account. So service account, an identity that provides credential for automation services. Service accounts can be used to grant access to resources in a project, similar to a regular user account. This is like a regular user account, but it will have a owner. Okay. So rather than using a particular human user account, we create a service account to run the automation. Now coming to service principal, what is a service principal? It is a non-human, non-interactive identity created for an application, service or automation tool to access resources. Okay, so it's a non-interactive user ID. Service principal can be used to authenticate and access various Microsoft services. So how do you create a service principal? When you make an app registration in Azure, a service principal is also created in that same tenant. So difference between service accounts and service principals are primarily related to security. Service accounts are used for authentication and authorization, while service principals are used for authentication, authorization, and access control. Okay. So that's all on this topic for today. Based on your feedback, I will try to add more topics, okay, on this. So thank you again for tuning to my channel, listening to my videos, and please do leave the comments and do subscribe to my channel, right? Thank you so much.